Hello everyone, today we're going to be replacing a battery on the Sega DreamCast. This is a console that I love quite a bit, and many of them have internal batteries that have died, and so I think this video might be beneficial to a lot of people. So I've already gotten a start here by removing the screws of the plate. You'll find them here on the four corners. One will be hiding underneath this modem area. And once you remove those four screws, you'll be able to just lift the top of the Dreamcast off. Those two pieces I pulled away are pretty sturdy, so you don't have to worry about it. From here on out, the insides of the system are going to be delicate. The most important thing to start off with is to remove this little ribbon cable gently and this little fan connection gently. Those two can be damaged pretty easily, but you can do it with just being patient. There are some screws that hold on that board that's connected to the controller ports. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver for all of the inside components and the exterior screws as well. So here we go. Here's the battery that we'll be replacing today. It's soldered onto this board in 3 places right here. And this is a great first soldering and desoldering project. You'll need to get those 3 knocked off. This board here is not too delicate. There are several other things you can do. You can replace the LED light and just upgrade the Dreamcast even further. So the first thing that I'll advise you to do is to get a desoldering iron. So there is a solder sucker that often comes in with kits of soldering stations. But this guy right here, the one I'm using right now, is like a solder sucker plus a soldering iron, as in it gets hot, and it also has a plunger to create a vacuum to remove the hot solder. I found when doing both the soldering iron in one hand and the solder removal kind of gun in the other hand, it was very tricky to get the solder removed because the solder would often cool and harden too quickly. And with this, the job becomes a lot simpler. Now, this is one of the first times I've ever done soldering or desoldering. I did find this to be the harder of the two things, desoldering rather than soldering. But, still not too bad. I would also advise you to use some kind of like hands or clamps to hold the board in place. And as you can see, I've already gotten 2, but not the third one off here. So it's still pretty easy. Just go back in there again and remove the solder, press to it, get it hot. This one does not have variable temperature, so you'll just kind of rely on it being hot enough after maybe a minute of warming up, and then you'll be able to remove it easily. So as you can see there, pretty easy job. The holes are now clear of solder. The old dead battery is free, and we're going to do a big upgrade here. So it fits right in. The board wasn't damaged. It's pretty sturdy. Again, you want to be careful, but you don't have to worry too much. So here we have the new battery, which is pretty cool because it has both a new battery and a battery replacement. So once that new battery in the middle dies, you won't have to do soldering again. Essentially, we'll be soldering the black battery holder on the left onto the board and then placing a new circular battery in there. It only fits one way, so the negative and positive side correspond obviously to the holder there. And as you can see, it has the 3 prongs that'll fit right into where we remove the older battery. So they stick out just a little bit right there. I think on this model they ended up being a little bit longer than the old one, which is a little helpful for soldering. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. I don't think you have to clip it down. It's good to have some excess out there. So let's get to soldering. It's important to use flux. So I was using a soldering station that came with many things. It did not come with flux, and I would highly recommend flux. So you can get a liquid flux or kind of this paste flux here. And what this does is it just makes it easier to solder. And what does that mean? When soldering a wire onto, when heating up the metal solder, oftentimes it will oxidate. I think that's what happens. And it'll kind of like harden too quickly, even if it is still hot. And when that happens, it makes it much more difficult to get it onto the new piece of metal. So this flux, this kind of paste or liquid, makes it so that the metal kind of flows better. And so as you can see here, that's doing its job. This paste also kind of evaporates, and there are fumes. And it kind of combines with the metal very nicely here. Again, I think having this clamped down makes it a lot easier. You can see I'm kind of struggling a little bit to get it to stay still, and I'm using my palm to hold it in place. So having it clamped down is a good thing. So make sure you're using solder, or better yet, buy the soldering wire that has solder built into it. It's kind of hollow in the inside, and it has that paste built into the center. I use some tweezers to apply it, but just kind of dipping the wire in and getting a little bit on there is also going to be a very effective way of doing that. So pretty easy, not the cleanest solders. Again, this was my first soldering job, so they were pretty big and bulbish. You can tell the difference between my solders and the manufacturer solders, but it got the job done, and in the end, it definitely worked. So it's in place, it's in there firm. I think it's probably better to over solder than under solder. You don't want it to come loose, especially if you're moving the console around. Afterwards, I think you want to go in there and remove any kind of excess flux or little bits of anything that kind of made the board dirty. It's also just a good idea to get in there and clean it with some isopropyl alcohol, probably 70%, and a Q-tip. Also, keep in mind when you're doing this, it's very good to have a fan nearby so that you're not breathing in those fumes. Make sure you're doing it by a window. Have a fan pointed away from you or across you towards a window so you're not breathing in any noxious fumes, because they will get you. Okay, so here we go. We're going to put it back in there, and this is definitely the easiest part, probably easier than taking it apart the first time. So you want to gentle it in there. It kind of sneaks in, and you have to kind of crunch it in. So you want to scoop from the front to the back to get it nestled in correctly. It kind of clicks in there nicely. With just a little bit of effort. You want to reconnect the ribbons so that the console is reading the controller inputs and all the things on the controller board. Reattach the fan. The inside of the Dreamcast is kind of a nice design because there's a lot of room. When you look at the GameCube, things are so crammed in there. But there's enough room in here that you can, see what you're doing. So you got that in there, and then go ahead and re-screw in the Phillips screws that were in there to hold the board in place. Pro tip, make sure you use a magnetic screwdriver so you can have an easy time just picking up the screw and placing it in. And also make sure you have like a little cloth laid down to the side or some sort of container to hold the screw so you don't lose any. So I think there's 4 on this board, and honestly, we're basically done. So we could end it here. That would be very funny, but we're going to keep going and finish the job. So screwed it in there. Not much more to say. At bare minimum, what you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver, crosshead, soldering iron, some soldering wire, and a desoldering device. So a solder sucker or a desoldering iron. Save yourself the hassle. Get the desoldering iron. It's just really useful. So go ahead and place that back on. You're going to screw in the 4 corners, pop back on the modem, and we're going to call it a day. So this was a little intimidating when you read about it the first time. Thankfully, I had another Dreamcast that was dead that I was able to practice on. And I can already hear you saying like, "Oh, those solders were not clean at all. I can't believe you practiced." But hey, it worked. And sometimes, especially when you're on the inside of the machine, especially for a first time, just getting it done is good enough. And I was really happy to have my Dreamcast back with the date and time, which I think for some games is important for things like Seaman. Where you have to games like Animal Crossing on the GameCube. I also did this on the GameCube, by the way. I replaced the battery there. Some games aren't going to function as well if you don't have a good battery in there. And I think newer batteries are obviously going to last longer. The battery in there was probably from the manufacturer. So this is going to extend the life of the Dreamcast nicely. So give it a try. Make a comment. Let me know if you did this too. And thank you for watching.